Say what's up.
What's up?
What's up? Very nice. Very nice. Well, everybody, we are happy that you're here, and we've got a great episode for you today. Before we do that, make sure that you like and subscribe to the show. Utilize the email that's available to you, which is, that's right, Quincy at mvsmpodcast.com. That's Quincy at mvsmpodcast.com. And if I have done my job properly, it will be on the screen right in this area. And then you will be able to send us a message and get directly to me. And we will share correspondence, and I will help you to the best of my ability. Now, what I want you to do also, if you like these threads, like this right here, Jeannie's gear today is trademarked by Nike, and Dawn's the Alabama Crimson Tide. I do not have that on my website for sale, but Roll Tide anyway. But you can go to quincymoran.com/apparel. And what you can do there is you can pick up on all the brands that we have. Looks a little something like this, quincymoran.com/apparel. And you can get in on anything that is Man versus Marriage, the Quincy Moran brand itself, Family Famous, and so much more. And I would appreciate you getting a shirt and then wearing it in public and giving people your testimony about what this show and what you have done for your life. And I don't want that to discourage you. Like you wear a shirt and somebody's going to ask you a question. Wear a shirt and expect people to ask you a question, because if you're a part of this program and you're a regular listener, you want to affect culture positively just as much as I do. That's why you're here. If you're new to the program and you don't know if you necessarily belong to this group, I'll give you a quick rundown. And what is that? Around 15 years ago, my wife and I had been married about 10 years. We had 8 children, and it was, I don't know how many at what point, but it was basically 6 and under, 7 and under. We had all the kids at the 10-year mark. Or was it 8 and under?
17 to 23.
Yeah, 6 years. So about
6 years.
About 6 and under. Okay. At 8 of them at 6 and under. We had a boy, we had triplet girls, we had another girl, we had twin girls, we had one more girl, and that rounds out the fabulous great 8 by the Moran family. And we found ourselves in a situation where we had become roommates because we were in full survival mode. And why were we in survival mode? How much time do you have? I'm not gonna bore you with all the details at this particular time, but we do have shows that tell our story. The quick run is this. Having triplets and having twins, we had health issues, daughters with brain issues, brain surgeries going on. We had diagnosis of autism 3 times. Our 3 oldest children have autism to varying degrees. We found out as we were moving, into a new home that our children had been molested by babysitters. And then to top it off, we got into financial duress during some of this time. We were eating out of a food bank. We were really, really struggling. And there were sleepless nights because autism, the brand that we carry, does not sleep. It can get violent, so on and so forth. And so my wife, Jeannie, and I, we were in a spot where we were trying to get along through the day. And our marriage was just not what we signed up for. And we wanted to reinvest in that. We went into a living life by design. It was like a personal development course. It's something that I didn't really even know that existed. Yeah, there were jokes before. Oh, Tony Robbins, blah, and then we went at our church, we went to like a marriage seminar, and we found out just how different we thought about our relationship. We got into some coaching, and it dramatically changed our relationship because we were willing and we did the work. And fast forward to about 5 years ago or so, and I had to do something to pay this forward because of the difference it made in my life. It was such a dramatic difference. I was like, who doesn't want to know about this? I guess there's plenty of people, and that's okay. But with that being said, that's what brings us here to this particular point in time. And if you can relate to any of that, maybe your intimacy in your relationship is broken. Maybe you're not having as much sex as you want to. Maybe you're not communicating. There's just a disconnect going on. You can't put your finger on it. We are here to help you. We are here to guide you. What do? We use our journey to live and educate you and give you the opportunity with your relationship in your household to turn things around. And what we have found is when our relationship is right, when it's firing on all cylinders, no matter what life is throwing at us, we are more deeply prepared and we can face anything. What do you say about that?
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, you should agree because we agree on that. All right. So here we go. We're going to talk about the top 5 best pieces of advice. We did an entire show on this. If you're jumping in right now, you need to go back and listen to the full show because we did that. And then we gave you episode number 1, which is you need to understand how your spouse receives love and how you receive love. And why is that important? Because you may be doing things for your spouse and it's not resonating and you're doing your best, like you have the best intention, but it's not being reciprocated. It's not being appreciated because it's not what your spouse needs. And so to better identify that, we gave you some tips there and how to understand that, if you know what your wife needs, or wife, if you're listening and you know what your husband needs, you're just asking for the playbook and then you're doing that and then you're checking in on it. So go check that episode out. Now we come to the second best piece of advice, which to me is overused all the time for everything. And it's the word communication. And that is such a deep pit, but it can be used as as an advantage to your relationship the more that you're intentional about it. So, honey, talk to me a little bit about communication, what that means from a woman's standpoint. Just kind of throwing you,
Ooh. Well, it varies actually. I mean, there's the business side of things, which that's what we call our home life, the kids' schedules, the day to day, the bills, the surface stuff that needs to happen. And then there's the quality time kind of communication where we spend hours talking about anything from how we're feeling, what our dreams are, what our goals are, what we're going through, where we want to go, you know, things we want to explore together, stuff of that nature. And then there's the ever so loved sarcasm, quick wit, and jugular shots that happen when we get frustrated or angry or, we don't do that as much anymore. Period. I mean, we play around, but we don't take gut shots anymore. But that was where we were in the beginning. And that's kind of one of the things that we had to work through.
Yeah. Yeah. I come from a broken home. So my parents were divorced when I was 5. My dad remarried a couple more times. My mom never had another relationship after that. And, Jenny comes from a home where her parents are still married. Thank God. They've been through
A lot.
a tremendous amount of stuff, which when you kind of get down to it, I think most families do. It's not perfect. You only know what you know. You know that, when you're around how people act. But communication is so broad. So how do you narrow that down? And I like to do things that are very practical, and I like to make sure they're impactful. That's kind of the way that we roll. Not kind of, that is the way we roll on this program. So we're going to get into that now. And I'll tell you, we have 5 different things that we want to talk about. And our goal is to do it in 30 minutes or less, and then give you back the balance of your time to get things figured out. That's going to be a challenge because I ran my mouth for the first 7 minutes of this program.
Hey, that's still 3 minutes less than the last one. Just saying.
Oh, I talked for 10 minutes straight, the last one?
Yeah, when you got frustrated at yourself for that one. So good job. You shaved some time.
Yeah, I did.
Look at you and Mo are on the same track. Good job.
That's right.
Good
We're
job.
cutting time. Okay. let's talk about what communication is. And I made a note for myself and then I did not follow through, but I'm going to try to do it while we're right here on the program. If I was as good as Jamie on Joe Rogan's show, I'd already have it pulled up and you never would have known that I did it. But since I'm not, I'm going to pull it up here and we're going to look at what is the word communication. This is good. Now be aware. There are things in the dictionary these days and people out there that they'll change the meaning of words just to fit what their narrative is. That's not what we're going to do here. We're just looking for the definition of communication. It is a noun. It is the imparting or exchanging of information or news, or the means of sending or receiving information, such as phone lines or computers. So that is the simplistic, like really simple definition of communication. And here's one of the biggest truths about communication that changed my life. And I know it's going to change yours. It's not about what you say, whoever you are listening, whether you're a husband or a wife. It's not about what you say. It's about what your spouse hears you say. And that can be a challenge because I know what I mean most of the time. And I can say something to Jeannie, knowing what I mean, and being that she's her own individual, when she hears that, she might not understand what it is I mean, even though I'm speaking English. Because sometimes we're frustrated and talking with each other, and I'll say, I know I'm speaking English here, so I don't know what the freaking problem is. But with that, a great tool in this particular practice is to say your piece and then just ask, hey, what did you hear me say? And I can tell you early on, even now, when we practice this, well, when we don't practice it, we screw it up.
Oh, yeah.
Am I boring you with all this yawning?
No, I work at night on the books, and then I get up in the morning and I do the other stuff, and it's after 3:00, so I'm getting tired.
I need to get better and get the covers to your books on here and promo them. Show everybody.
That's okay.
I'll do that. So what happens is, I could say, honey, we're just not having as much sex as I want to have. And Jeannie could hear that, and we could have had it. Maybe it's Tuesday and we had sex on Sunday and Monday, and she could misinterpret what I mean.
I thought we did fine for 2 days. What?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually a poor example because it doesn't cover what I'm looking for. But let me assure you, I wish I would have brought an example to the program. Here it is. Jeannie and I really struggled with the difference between needing and wanting. And so when I would tell her I want sex, her interpretation of that is she is just there to perform a service. And to me, that is absurd because I would never say that. It took us about a 4-hour conversation to get down to the bottom of it. And in my mind, I would rather be wanted than needed. In Jeannie's mind, she wants to be needed. I don't know where you stand on being wanted.
Okay, so when it comes to sex, it's both, but there is a difference between a need and a want. When it's been a long day, I'm really tired, I want to go to sleep or cuddle or whatever. Good example. Last week, I think it was last week, it had just been an off week. We'd been busy. We had a lot going on. I was in my own head about some things. You were in your own head about some things. Neither one of us had nothing to do with the other one. They were both work-related things, but they were just kind of, I don't know, with just inside voice stuff going on between the two of us. And we weren't sharing that. We hadn't had a check-in until the weekend. We had a clash conversation after the fact while I was still kind of going through my stuff, which he, mind you, had no idea I was going through. And I told you one night I just wanted to shower. I was going to take a shower. You could join me. And for me, I wasn't looking to go any further than that. I just wanted the time and the closeness and to be with you with no distractions, no noises, no outside, just us. Because sometimes when you have a house full of people that live with you, your sex time is cut really short, or it's not what you could do if you weren't at home, because you have people in the house and you're constantly, I mean, autism is amazing, amazing timing
Yeah.
at night. It's just like the nights they don't sleep. It's just great.
Young
And
adults have amazing time as well. When
oh,
you say don't come to my room at a,
I figured out how to break that one. Just
but
tell them we're having sex and then they stop talking.
we're
But
digressing. Let's get to it
the
here.
point is, I wasn't looking to go any further. I think you kind of thought we were going to do something that night, but I didn't need sex. I just wanted the intimacy, the touching and the cuddling. I didn't want the other stuff. For me, if I'm tired or I've had a long day or I'm just not in the mood for something, and you come to me and say you need the connection, I can put whatever I'm feeling aside, and I will put my effort into taking care of what you need and making sure that that connection happens. If it's been a really bad day, sometimes we have to take a rain check on that. But that's the difference for need and want for me. A want is I mean, who doesn't want sex a lot? But I'm just saying it's different.
I'm sure
Because
there's
if
people out there, but
but if it's a want and one of us is tired, or there's something, it can be deferred. In that case, it's not something where I feel like, you need the connection, and I understand the need for the connection, because it usually means something's missing, something's off. There's something between us that needs to be brought back, or there's something externally that's going on that has you off kilter. And when you and I are connected and everything clicks, those things don't bother us as much anymore. The want side of things for me is, it's great to be wanted, but if it's not something that, um, I feel like it can, you could go a day without, or I could go a day without, or we have things going on. I guess it's easier for me to say I can rain check that and not feel like an a-hole for it. But if it's something where you come in and say you need it, I won't rain check that.
okay.
Unless it's like major, I won't.
Understood. I've got to pause that there because that pertains less to what we're talking about and more. I got us off on a rabbit trail. My fault.
Your fault. I
It is.
followed you.
Yeah, my fault. Anyway, principle number 1 in communication is it's not what you say, it's what she hears you say. So if you have some contention and you guys are having a heated discussion and you say something and you see her face change a little bit, stop for a moment and say, "Honey, what did you just hear me say?" And if she tells you and it's not what you meant, you say, "Okay, let me try again." You have to use integrity. You can't like word salad your way into it, or you can't get cold feet and get nervous and
Or you
back
can't
off.
snap because they didn't hear what you thought they would, and what the
Yeah.
hell are you talking about? That's not what I said.
Yeah.
You've got this is tread lightly until you get to the point where you guys understand
It's
each
a
other.
learned behavior. And then it's something that really helps if you guys agree, like you come to terms with it. You could tell your spouse, "Hey, I'm listening to this excellent podcast, one of the best in the whole world. And they have a
Believe
great
me.
principle." That's right. Believe me. And they have a principle here, which is, "What did you hear me say?" And so I'm going to try it because I want to communicate better. So when we're talking, if you don't mind, let's practice. And then you can say some stuff and it's like, "Hey, what did you hear me say?" Because the thing is that you and your spouse have a lens that you see, or a filter that you see and hear everything through. And if you're not intentional, like about your emotions and what you're doing, then you could have just read a text from someone that you misinterpreted it, or maybe you're arguing about it and you're frustrated. And then your spouse tries to say something that's not contentious and you take it that way. So that's where this practice comes in. And then when you get in a heated conversation, you guys can understand using the principle. Just understand you're on the same team. You're on the home team, and we're just trying to get down to the bottom of it. So that's number 1. The next thing is that number 2 is, okay, let me read this here. So number one is actually listening authentically. I screwed this whole thing up, but that's okay. I can bring it back. Um, that was the what did you hear me say is a principle. Number one is listen authentically. Do you know what listen authentically is, honey?
Yeah, shut up and listen. Pay attention.
Yeah. Whether you're arguing or you're talking, no matter what you're doing, stop thinking and take the information in.
Now hold on. You got to you have to reiterate. It's taking in information, not taking in ammunition. There is a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. That's a great point.
There is a difference because sometimes when you're in a heated conversation, depending on where you are in your marriage and how you talk to each other, if you've been at each other for a while and you've been arguing for a while, you're probably already at that place where every time your spouse says something, you're cataloging things and you're taking in ammunition rather than information to hear what they're actually trying to tell you and reiterating it back and forth.
Correct. And here's what I say. This is not just a technique that should be used for arguing. That's why I say whether you're just having a discussion or you're arguing, it's about being present in the moment. And when your spouse is talking to you, not being distracted and taking in all the information. Take it in. Because have you ever talked to somebody like you're talking to them and all they're doing is this? If you're on the video, you can see. Oh, yeah, yeah. Hey, could you repeat that?
Crazy.
Because that sucks. They're not actually listening to you. So you're just blowing a bunch of hot air. So learn to listen authentically. And then when you are arguing or if you are in a heated discussion, it takes a lot of discipline not to start going back and get a case of the yabbits, which is, yeah, but you did this and yeah, but you did that. Just take all the information in, listen authentically. And then number two is how you respond. So if Jeannie and I are talking, let's say it is a heated conversation and she is telling me X, Y, and Z, I'm listening. And I take a second to digest it all a little bit. And I say, okay, so what I hear you telling me or what I hear you saying is this. Is that what you mean? And she can say yes or no. Or if you're not in an argument and she's talking, what you can do to let your partner know that you are listening is you say, hey, I heard you say this. Can you tell me more about it? Because that's helping you engage in deeper conversation.
Quincy's famous line, help me understand.
Yeah.
In any situation, help me understand because this is what I'm hearing. Help me understand how this is that.
Yeah. Well, that's usually like in a situation that's got some, I don't want to say contentious, but it's a situation where you could be having a heated discussion.
Well, no, I've heard you use it before though, in like when we're business planning or something, and you'll say, "Okay, well, help me understand how doing this is going to get us to this goal because I'm not seeing what you're talking about." And it's not necessarily a contention; it's simply one of us might have an idea going this way, and the other one has an idea going that way, and it's like, okay, we need to cross that bridge on how to make this
Sure
work. But it's just a simple way of not being rude about saying, I don't see what you're saying. I don't get what you're saying. It's just kind of helpful. It helps with the kids sometimes too.
That's true. So in that technique, there's something I feel like it's important. You're listening authentically. You're asking, hey, I hear you saying this. Is this what you're talking about? If your spouse is talking to you about an issue, do your best to refrain from trying to fix everything because you can become like a minimizer. Like if your spouse is telling you something, it's like, oh, that's easy. Just do this. Just do this. A lot of times we have the answers within us on what we should do. So being a great listener, asking, this is what I hear you say, this furthering the discussion. And it also plays well if, I shouldn't say plays well. It also connects well if your spouse is a quality time, love language. That really, truly helps. So the next principle is something, this is another thing that you need to come to terms with before you have heated conversations or conversations that are just uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
And that is the say it ugly principle. And I developed this a while back because Jeannie and I were having a discussion about sex, and I had some of my own, what could I say? I had some of my own confidence issues just because of my body. Like I used to be pretty close to 400 pounds. So I had I had some things that were a challenge for me and I didn't know how to say it. I had to be vulnerable to Jeannie to say it. And so I said, look, and I'm from the South. I'm from Alabama. So sometimes we say it ugly. And I said,
We
look,
don't mean to be ugly though.
yeah, I don't mean to be ugly, but, and then so what happens is I said this, I said, hey, I need to say something ugly. And if it doesn't come out right, I will clean it up. And basically, if you know what golf is, you're giving somebody a mulligan or you're giving someone the grace to say something that's uncomfortable. They don't know how it's going to come out. They got to say it out loud. There's a lot going on. And it's really been a great principle for us, I would say. So it's the say it ugly principle. And it applies whether you're talking about the bedroom or whether you're talking about the like a very contentious conversation and you've got something you need to get out on the table, or maybe it's something that you're going through and you can put it out there, but you need to come to terms. Like if you're listening to this program, guys, let's say you, husband, you're listening to the program and your wife has no idea what the say it ugly principle is. And you say, hey, I need to say something ugly and then I'll clean it up. Maybe it's common sense, but you might just wreck.
The first half of that sentence just told her brain to stop and hold up. You're going to say something ugly. So rude, mean, like for
Yeah.
me, if I didn't know, my defenses would be up immediately after ugly, just because
Yeah.
being that I know what I know about, I don't mean to be ugly. That's the first thing that sprung to mind when you first said it. And you were like, well, it's just uncomfortable. So he had to explain to me what he meant because I did the same thing. He's like, I need to say this ugly. And if it doesn't come out right, I'll clean it up. And I was like, are you okay? Like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
Because I was expecting him to say something that would hurt or offend me, that was going to make me defensive. So I had to, one, it's a trigger for me when he says something like that, because now I know, okay, to put my defenses down. Don't take it personal. Listen with intent. Hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
Because whatever this is, say it ugly is one of those things that we use at the most vulnerable of conversations.
Correct.
The things that we know are either it's something that we are struggling with, and it's something that maybe we haven't talked to anybody else about, or maybe it's something that we all have those things periodically that we deal with internally. We don't really feel like we need to involve our spouse, or we don't need to involve our friend. It's just, you just want to deal with it yourself.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to admit when you need help with those things. The other side of that is, it's something that is usually, sensitive, I guess is the way to put it, where it's, I'm trying to say it. I don't want you to take offense to it. He's used it in a conversation with me to tell me things that I'm doing that are coming off a certain way. And it was prefaced. It's like, look, first, do I have permission to tell you something? You might not like it. Of course he does. You have permission to do it. But the fact that he asked me means I now know, okay, I'm not going to like this. I'm just not going to like it.
Yeah.
But then when he tells me he has to say it ugly, it usually tells me, okay, I've done something that is either hurt somebody, is going to hurt somebody.
Maybe it's hurt me.
Or exactly. Or I'm doing something that could possibly hurt myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of a catchphrase to let us both know, take your defenses down. Don't take it personal. Don't get mad about it. Process through what's being said. And that's where the volleying questions back and forth, and especially after this one, is, okay, this is what you're saying to me. Am I hearing this correctly? Because I used to be, I still kind of am in some situations. If you're a child that I have birthed, very much so. But with Quincy and I, the fuse is a lot longer than it used to be, because we've taken the time to kind of preface ourselves in conversations that we know are going to be harsh. We've also made rules like, I don't even think we included this in communication. Don't do it over text. I'm just going to throw that in there. Bonus, don't do it over text.
Yeah, it's a bonus
Ever,
feature.
ever,
for sure.
ever. We've had multiple conversations that went over text. And because I'm at home and I'm in a mindset of certain things, and he's at work and he's in a mindset of certain things, those text messages go through that filter. And if I'm in a mood and he puts something in caps and it's meant to be like exciting, it might come off as pissed off because I'm not in the right headspace.
Yep.
Just don't do it over text.
Yep. And so the next piece of this, so what do we have now? I'm just gonna break it down real quick for you. It's listen authentically, respond and ask deeper questions. And then the number 3 principle in communication is learn how to say it ugly. You have to come to terms with your spouse. Here's another one that's big, and we have multiple shows on these topics as individuals, but we're giving it to you in a quick format here, because we need to be present and accountable for these ourselves, because sometimes we forget to use the tools that we talk to you about. The next one is silent expectations. And that if you do not communicate those silent expectations, then you are setting yourself up for abject failure. And it's going to cause hurt. It's going to cause bitterness. It's going to cause resentment. It's really going to be harmful to you and your relationship, no matter how long you've been married. You say, well, you've known me this long. You should know no, that does not work. You need to communicate what your expectations are, and that can be difficult. That's why we gave you those 3 other principles first, and really booted this one off with the say it ugly principle, because each of us, like Jeannie said, we have a conversation going on. We have an inner dialogue. We have a play-by-play happening. We don't always share all of that with our spouse. But if you're not communicating a need to your spouse and you're just expecting him or her to know it, that's unrealistic. And that is on you. That's not on your spouse.
I can actually give you the simplest example that we have. So I'm at home. I'm dealing with kids. I'm dealing with my own work stuff. I'm dealing with bills, whatever's going on in my day to day. So my focus is on multiple people and multiple things and where I have to be, who I have to pick up, shuffling people around. If my day doesn't go on time, there is a good possibility dinner will not be ready at a certain time. And if Quincy's been on the road and he's been dealing with work, and in his mind, he's thinking, I'm going to be home at 7:00. We're going to have dinner. I haven't eaten all day. I'm starving hungry, but he has not communicated with me for any reason during the day, or I have not communicated to him, hey, my day got off the rails. I'm running late. This is what's happening. Then it doesn't happen as much now, but it used to, especially when you first switched over to carnivore and you're fasting and whatnot. He would come home and he would get frustrated because dinner's not ready. Now he has to wait 45 minutes because I've got to get home, get things done, stuff to that degree where and for him, as silly as it might sound to some of you, this is something that's important to him because Quincy needs to know that he matters. He needs to know that I've thought about him and that he is a priority to me, and me not telling him. It's not about not having the dinner done. It's about not telling him, hey, my day got crazy. I'm behind on schedule. This is what's going to happen. So that he knows before he gets here, this has been changed. Now it works the same way with me. If I'm doing 110 things and Quincy calls me and says, hey, I need you to get this done. Can you help me out with this? And he doesn't preface me with speed bump. As stupid as it seems to some people, I actually have got some people on my speed bump train. Thank you very much. But when you're the manager of the house and you are dealing with as many people as we have, you could be dealing with 2 and it's still chaotic.
It sure is.
But in our home, because we have unstable variable of autism.
I think just variable.
No, it's unstable because some days we're great and some days we're not. And some days this one plays off of this one. Oop.
Come on.
No, I keep messing with the mic. Sorry. But anyway, with that, and then school schedules, having a kid call me from school and say, "Hey, can you bring me this for my uniform because I forgot and we're getting inspection today?" All those little things, as dumb as they sound, and in the grand scheme of everything, these are all little things. But when you are one person functioning all of these little things, and then one more person calls and says, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to make it home on time. I need to get this done. I need you to get this done for me. Can you go over here and get this done? It needs to be done in like 20 minutes." My brain just stalls out. For whatever reason, it overwhelms me and I am not able to function and it pisses me off. And it's not anything that's really life changing or that big. It's just simply have the courtesy to warn me. Usually, what will happen is it goes something like Quincy will send me a text, speed bump, all capital letters, and then he'll give me about 60 seconds before another text comes through or a phone call comes through. That 60 seconds is long enough for my brain to say, okay, stop what I'm doing, give myself a minute to kind of reset. Where am I in my day? What's happening? And if I'm already there, I can just call him and find out what's going on. But then he'll
Mm-hmm.
text me and say, "I need this, this, and this," or "This is what's happening." Um, it just helps me to not react so quickly. That was the other piece I was going to put in there. You said you're talking about responding. Another bonus nugget that Rita gave us: make sure you are in fact responding, not reacting
Yeah.
in a conversation, because we are all really quick to, when somebody says something and it comes out in a certain tone, or you hear it a certain way before we have a chance to say, "What did you hear me say?" We will turn around and word vomit or snap or say something smart ass, and it's a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're not listening intentionally. You're not being authentic in letting them be vulnerable and say what they need to say. You're reacting because you're on the defensive. So that's a small little piece there that she helped us with because I was overreactive.
You were overreactive? Oh, wow.
I still am one from
I,
time to time.
I'm so glad I have that on video. Anyway, I'm kidding. I think, and I'll tell you what, one of the
I see
greatest.
some birds in here. You want to see them?
Yeah, they about to start flying. Watch this family fly. Um, one of the things that I had to learn through that process, the whole please have dinner ready when I get home deal. Um, I didn't understand that I wanted to know that I mattered. I didn't get that. But then also I had to learn that there's a two-way courtesy, which is, give Jeannie some courtesy that she's got a lot going on, and then give me the courtesy. I don't know why courtesy goes so far for me. It's just have the
Because it's not so
courtesy.
common anymore.
Could be. And so I had to learn through these situations, like if something came up for her, I would have to learn how not to take this so personal, because I had to take a step back and go, look, she loves to cook for me. She loves to do these things for me. And I love it when she does. And it makes me feel like I matter in my home. And is this something that she would do intentionally? No. So courtesy, another bonus nugget, courtesy goes a long way because you're considering the other person intentionally. So let me get to number 5 real quick. Number 5 is a very deep hole, but it's very, very important. And number 5 in communication is identifying the baggage you brought into your relationship. And that can be a challenge. And we have shows on that. So if you want to know what shows they are, email me, Quincy@mvsmpodcast.com. I'll do what I can to get some in the show notes. If I don't, make sure you email me, because this was a big deal. And I'm telling you that because just kind of checking my notes there to look, I told you about whatever you hear your spouse saying, and when you're communicating, you might be in the emotion of the moment, and it's the filter you hear everything through. Well, that's also what you're predisposed to do if you're not intentional about the baggage that's in your life. Jeannie and I remember we were sitting in front of Coach Rita. You had asked me to hold you accountable. Then every time I held you accountable, like for your diet or whatever it was, you would get really upset with me. And then, you'd kind of take it out on me. And so we were asking her about that. And what it came down to is every time I would say something about accountability, you would go back to, well, my dad. And Rita at one point had to say, "Hey, Jeannie, Quincy is not your dad." And so, for whatever reason, whenever she would get any kind of feedback or accountability or, I would go, you would have to explain it better, but you would put me in as your dad coming that way.
Well, okay, so my dad, and I love him and I understand why he did it now. I don't agree with it, but I understand why he did it because of his upbringing. Would take the things that you wanted to do or that he didn't, I don't know. He used to try to motivate us by pointing out things that we sucked at. So the goal was to make you work harder to prove him wrong. Unfortunately, it backfired most of the time because instead of wanting to prove you wrong, we started out wanting to prove him wrong. And then after a while, we just kind of gave up. I'm like, oh, he's right. We can't do it. And we'd stop. And we just would give up. And then you have a ton of unfinished things, which to this day, I still battle that on a regular basis. But every time somebody would give me feedback, I hate that word, or would try to hold me accountable for something, depending on how it was said and what was brought up, I took it as a slight of pointing out my flaws, pointing out my faults, pointing out things that I suck at. And then it would backfire because I'm going to show you your flaws. You're pointing out my shit. I'm going to point out yours.
And so what your dad did, which is a common thing we always do, is your dad did what worked for him.
Yep.
And he maybe didn't know or didn't consider that this might not work, on my daughter because she's made up differently than I am, which is completely understandable because a lot of times we'll do that as parents. So like you say, it's no disrespect to your dad. He was doing what he saw. It's what helped him get where he was. But if you don't identify, and I hate to use the word, the trigger phenom, because everything is so triggering in this crazy woke society we live in America, and it's false. But there are things that will trigger you legitimately. And I had to come to terms with it that I was acting out of my past when Jeannie and I would get in an argument, we'd be really upset. And what I would do is go to silent mode because if I was silent, we weren't arguing. And then I would figure my crap out so I could be okay. And I had to be okay. My parents, when I was 5, they got divorced. Had nothing to do with me. I personalized it for a lot of years, thinking that why am I not good enough? Why couldn't you stay married for me? That kind of thing. When it had nothing to do with me, it was their own crap they had to figure out. And so as I went along, my mother, single mother, working, doing her best to provide for us, had a lot of family support. Then I would move in with my dad, single dad, a lot of struggles. And so what did I have to figure out? If I'm going to be okay in this world, I got to make sure that I'm good. So no matter what happens to me, I'm always going to be okay. And that was my commitment. But it was really me just like flexing out of my pain, saying, you can't hurt me, the whole time I was hurt. And so what happens is Jeannie and I get in an argument, and it's like, hey, are you okay? First of all, in my mind, I'm going, we just had an argument and we're both pissed. What kind of stupid question is this? I don't need this question right now. Let me burn it off. I didn't know how to communicate that. But we're in the movie. She's like, hey, are you okay? And I looked at her and I can't imagine what my face looked like, but I said, I'm okay. I'm always going to be okay. And you never have to ask me that question again. Yeah, I'm sure I was really emotionally healthy at that point.
Oh, I remember exactly what your face looked like.
Yeah, and I can too. But that is the type of baggage that we're talking about. 2 really simple examples, because anytime I hear this is the way I act. If you have those anchors in your life, then you are not living in freedom, and you need to. And the only way you can do that is to identify the baggage you brought into the relationship, figure out how to unzip it, and start to remove this baggage and get rid of it, because it is acting as a filter when it comes to how you and your spouse or you and your friends or you and your family communicate. And until you deal with that, you're going to remain in this cycle of like hostile communication. Like you won't be able to break through. If you grew up in church, you'll keep circling that mountain. That's why I say it's a big deal. If you don't know how to do it or you want help with it, email us. We will help you. And we have an episode coming up, one of our longtime listeners called Standing Outside the Frame. It's fantastic. I'm going to give you these one more time, just in very short order.
Okay, I'm gonna add to your last one though, real quick. If you're already in your marriage and the baggage thing kind of hit you where, I do always react this way or I do always feel that way. This is where the coming up with a buzzword
Yeah, buzzword
helps,
principle. Yeah.
because if you are trying to, when we tried to work through this with Rita and tried to get me to not react to Quincy as if he was my dad, telling me what to do or pointing out my flaws, I had to give him permission, first of all, to call me out on my stuff. Now, he doesn't do it rudely. He's not an asshole about it. He would just say, are you hearing me or are you hearing Vito in a conversation? And that was enough for me to stop and go, wait, okay, hold on, time out. Because it helps you to identify your filter, which is I am hearing what you're saying, but I am hearing it with my father's voice. And so every time he would say, are you hearing me? Are you hearing Vito? Even Rita, we'd be in a conversation. Rita would go, wait a minute, hold on. When he said that, who did you hear? It just helps to rip that filter away.
Mm-hmm.
So you're no longer hearing it. If you are in that position and you are going through some things that you need to unpack and process through, take the time to work together to say, okay, when this happens, maybe if you say this, just so that it helps kind of pull me out of that moment. Or if with Quincy and I, if it's something that maybe I don't even remember what we used for yours, but it would be something where I would say, okay, you know what, when this happens, if I say this, will that help you? It's just it's coming up with those simple techniques to let the other person know I'm not trying to run you over with this. I'm trying to bring your attention to something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gives you the power now to say, okay, am I going to choose to continue using that filter, or am I going to make the decision to get rid of the filter? And that helps you decide, am I going to get rid of my baggage or am I going to keep my baggage?
Yeah. Awareness is such a great thing, and it can get messy. And buzzwords is probably something I should have maybe made this the top 6, because buzzwords goes such a long way. We had so much contention at a time, and it would seem real shallow, but Jeannie would have to sit up with our daughter for hours on end, and we would talk that day. This is after we were doing some work, even before actually we started doing some counseling, and we're supposed to have sex. And so I know that she was there. She was sitting up with Kirsten, waiting for her to fall asleep. And it would be in the wee hours of the morning, like midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And there I am, like, okay, I can endure this because I know I'm going to get that time to connect with my wife. I need it. I want it. I'm going to endure this. And then she would come to bed and she would turn over and go to sleep. And I'm like, what happened here? I thought we were going to have our time. I mean, I'm sacrificing. I'm willing to sacrifice my sleep. What are you doing? And I would feel like she's not even considering me, like not even saying, "Hey, honey, I'm exhausted. Can we please try this another time?" And so one of the like earth-shattering in a good way buzzwords we came up with was the rain check. No, it's no less disappointing, per se, but to know that my needs,
Consideration.
my needs, you're considering those, it helps out so much, and it's like, hey, maybe I got a rain check. Or we'll ask, hey, do you need a rain check? Or whatever. That is such a game changer. So you're getting some bonus nuggets here on this 51-minute episode that's supposed to be 30. But you know what? I'll talk to the guy who owns this podcast and let him know that we went over, and I'm sure he'll be fine with it. I think it's very helpful. Anyway, there we go. That is your 5
With
principles.
3 bonuses.
Yeah, 5 principles. Yeah, 3 bonuses. So that'd be 8 principles um, of communication on this second, number 2 in advice when it comes to marriage. So I really hope that I'm confident that this has helped you. It's been game changer for us. I hope you listen to this episode more than once, make some notes, and start to get intentional about what it is you're doing when it comes to communication. Take this advice. Let me remind you what the great Nick Saban said. He said, good people learn from their mistakes. Great people, and there's a distinction between good and great people learn from other people's mistakes. So whether you like Nick Saban or not, he is the greatest of all time in college football for a reason, and that's because he teaches people how to be better than they are currently. So if you can take that and adapt it to your particular life and learn from our mistakes, you can save yourself a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, a lot of frustration, and maybe get more sleep at night, because sometimes this stuff will keep you up. But that is it for this particular episode. Honey, anything else that you want to say? You better say no.
Maybe.
I knew it. I knew it. Anyway, hey, remember the email address, Quincy at mvsmpodcast.com. Remember that. Utilize it. Go check out quincymoran.com/apparel, because that's where you can find all the gear. I want you to go check out the gear, buy it, wear it, and then give me some testimonials on how people came up to you and what you talked to them about. Help us impact culture in a positive way with good, strong men, great marriages, great families. It's going to make a difference. And you have a responsibility, just like I do, to go out and get that done. So with that, she is Jeannie Moran. What?
I better say no. I don't have any final words. Look at you. How many minutes was that?
I'm the host of this podcast.
Uh-huh.
We're going to do it live. You don't know what that's from. But so that's it. She's Jeannie Moran. I am Quincy Moran. And this is Men vs. Marriage, the podcast.